Hey, welcome to Socialism for All. This file is being recorded for the April 2025 edition of Socialism for All, and today we're continuing our reading of a 1979 Soviet anthology on ultra-leftism titled Lenin on Petty-Bourgeois Revolutionism. This is the introduction to Section 3. By the end of 1918, communist parties were founded in a number of countries. From the very outset, the young communist movement was faced with powerful enemies. It was opposed on the one hand by a well-organized, armed, and politically experienced international bourgeoisie, which combined direct suppression of the revolutionary movement of the working class with partial, mainly economic concessions to the latter, and on the other by opportunist, reformist social democracy, which made use of those insignificant concessions in its preaching for a class peace. Having declared war on conciliationism and the unprincipled policy of the right opportunist ideologists, many young communist leaders, and this is quite understandable, went to the other extreme, which showed symptoms of sectarianism and ultra-leftism. In exposing the treacherous essence of reformist policies, the ultra-left came to reject the very necessity of serious political work among the masses. There were several factors that influenced their attitude: non-acceptance of the old methods of struggle, lack of experience, insufficient theoretical knowledge, and a failure to understand that mere recognition of the aims and principles of communism was not enough to turn the party into a truly influential political force. Carried away by revolutionary enthusiasm, they did not realize that in order to win the right to lead the working class and all oppressed people in the struggle against the old world, they must first convince working people that their views, political program, and tactical slogans were correct. The mistakes of the ultra-left were aggravated as members from petty bourgeois strata, with their quote revolutionary impatience, sided with the communist movement. All this persuaded Lenin, despite the fact that he had hardly a minute to spare, to undertake the writing of a book, which he called quote left-wing communism, an infantile disorder. Lenin, the acknowledged leader of the international working class, an embodiment of selfless devotion to the revolutionary cause, and of courage and staunchness in the struggle for the emancipation of the working people, and a consistent internationalist, regarded it as his duty to help communists overcome the dangerous and in fact petty bourgeois penchant for ultra-revolutionary phrase-making, and rid themselves of the distorted notion about the development of the revolutionary process. Drawing on the experience of the previous proletarian movement, including the experience of 3 Russian revolutions, he showed that petty bourgeois revolutionism, which resembled anarchism or borrowed something from the latter, and which disregarded on every essential point the conditions and requirements of consistent proletarian class struggle, could, under certain circumstances, deal a heavy blow not only at the parties themselves, but at the revolutionary movement as a whole, and that a passion for ultra-leftism for its own sake inevitably introduced divisive tendencies into the movement. The book was a warning against sectarian mistakes. It helped the communist parties to work out Marxist strategy and tactics, to find and use the means of revolutionary struggle that were in conformity with the real distribution of opposing forces, to master the scientific principles of political leadership, and above all to learn to carry out day by day systematic work among the masses. But many ultra-left groups within communist parties continued to disregard that essential requirement of Leninism. Toward the end of 1920 and the beginning of 1921, when the revolutionary movement in Europe was subsiding, the quote left-wing infantile disorder suffered a serious relapse. Having advanced the so-called theory of the offensive, the ultra-leftists, with their subjective assessment of events and a desire to leap over the necessary stages of the movement, were actually pushing the working class onto the road of premature uprisings which were foredoomed. In this way, ultra-left dogmatism became the main danger for the world communist movement. Lenin's statements, articles, notes, and letters in which problems connected with the ideology, policy, and tactics of ultra-leftism are dealt with in one or another connection remain timely today, for they teach communists throughout the world the ways of conducting an uncompromising and consistent struggle for truly mass-based, truly revolutionary Marxist parties of the working class, such parties being the political vanguard of the working class. Included in this section are excerpts from Left-Wing Communism, an Infantile Disorder from April 1920, and from the speech in defense of the tactics of the Communist International, which Lenin delivered on July 1, 1921.